Hi, I'm Greg Dell with Dell Disability Lawyers, joined by attorney Stephen Jessup, and we're happy to talk to you today about a recent case that Stephen resolved against the Hartford Disability Insurance Company. And Steve, give us the background of this case, some information, and let's talk about some takeaways from the case that will help people who have a Hartford disability claim or any long-term disability claim that they're seeking benefits with.
All right, so generally, the background on this client, he was a hazardous chemical truck driver, so he had special levels of license. It's a more specialized area of truck driving, a lot more responsibilities and credentialing, who was suffering from severe lumbar disc degeneration and then hip issues that eventually led to him needing a hip replacement. Prior to disability 2, he had also had 2 femoral artery bypass surgeries on his heart. But in conjunction with all these things, he filed his claim for disability with Hartford. Given the nature of his work, they approved the claim, pretty easily. Said, hey, we can understand why you wouldn't be able to drive a truck with all these issues you're having. And like so many situations where they'll pay during the own occupation period, which, as we've discussed many times in the past, is can you perform the material and substantial duties of your occupation? They rode that out, and then going into the any occupation after the 24 months, try to determine were there other occupations based on his training, education, experience that he could do that would, prove he's not disabled. During this interim period as well, on the initial 2 years, he was approved as Social Security disability. And Social Security has an even harsher standard of not being able to perform any work.
A more difficult
More
standard.
difficult. So Hartford, of course, they took that into consideration, but I tell people all the time, just because Social Security approved you doesn't mean the insurance company is going to approve you. They just have to consider that as part of the evidence. So in the review into this any occupation stage, Hartford's entire review was performed by a nurse case manager, not even a doctor, who instead of reaching out to his pain doctor, his orthopedic doctors, his primary care doctor, reached out to the vascular surgeon who performed the 2 bypass surgeries almost now at this point, over 2 years prior, and asked him, would your patient have any restrictions with the ability to work? Well, the vascular surgeon said no, because he had released him from his care over 24 months ago. He's like, I don't have any restrictions. And that alone was the basis for Hartford's denial. Our client, he contacted us after receiving the denial letter, and that's when we got in the game to prepare his appeal for him.
So is it normal for Hartford to just rely on a nurse to review the records and make some kind of what seems like a unintelligent decision or maybe it was more, give her more credit than we think. She went to the doctor who she knew would say no restrictions and limitations because it was a vascular issue that wasn't the basis of what this particular claimant was claiming for disability.
My personal feeling is yes, to an extent. Wherever Hartford can save money on the review, they will save money. Sometimes you'll see where it's a nurse case manager who writes up the whole report that there's no restrictions and limitations, and then they'll kick it over to one of their in-house medical doctors to basically agree with it. In this situation, like you said, she rendered a decision, reached to one doctor, and then Hartford's like, all right, well, we have a doctor saying there's no restrictions. End of story. My personal feelings is that on initial denials, they will usually try to do the least amount of work to deny, and I think it's basically to see if someone's going to fight them on it, if they're going to appeal, if they're going to fight. And then only in the appeal process will you see them try to, stack the deck in their favor with multiple medical reviews.
Right, but it just seems so unfair. I don't know how this nurse literally sleeps at night saying, yeah, I'm a nurse, I reviewed the records. I'll give her credit. Being a nurse is not an easy job. You have to have a level of education, training, things like that. You're clearly not a doctor. And yes, he had 3 other doctors, as you said, a surgeon, a pain management doctor, a regular doctor, but who cares what they say? Let me go to the doctor who was the one who hasn't even seen him in 2 years. And and then it's not just the nurse. How does the next claims person get that and make a reasonable determination and go, yeah, I agree, and not even think there's 3 other doctors who may have an opinion? Like, how do they do that?
$1 million question. $1 million question. And in part, I also think and have theories that, the claims person probably has a very large caseload. And if they have a basis to say, all right, well, I can deny this one, get it off my desk so it has to go to an appeals department, it closes a file and it's one less that they have to worry about in that moment.
But do you think it's also intentional from the claim rep, or do you think the claim rep is just that dumb and doesn't know that maybe I should consider the opinions from 3 other people?
You know, in my experience reviewing claim files, I've seen where claims representatives really kind of go, they'll get quality control involved, or, you know, say, hey, I'd like to send this out for additional. And I've seen laziness, you know, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's being dumb so much. I think they're just apathetic to it. I think they're just indifferent. I do believe there are claims examiners that try to do the right thing, but, you know, you and I were discussing before we came on cameras, there's others that just blinders on, toe the party line for the company, and that's it for them.
But this is an example of blinders on of a claim rep who said, the medical department rules the day. I'm just a pawn. If you tell me there's no restrictions, limitations, that's the keyword language I need, and therefore I'm just going to deny the claim.
Yep.
Okay. So what did you do in order to get benefits reinstated?
One of the biggest things, he was still suffering from severe lumbar issues. The hip was bothering him quite a bit, and because of the back and the hip combination, his left side hip was also starting to, you know, get worse. So we sent him for functional capacity testing to verify under this generic Department of Labor standard of sedentary, light, you know, medium, heavy, very heavy work, what he would be capable of doing. You know, that testing resulted that he would be capable of sedentary on a part-time basis. You know, and then we also went into a vocational analysis as well. What his transferable skills were. He's a highly skilled, you know, driver. That's all he's ever done. He's never worked a desk job in his life, you know, doesn't, you know, use computers except for emails and stuff like that. So he didn't really have any transferable skills. So we attacked the physical ability, and then even some of the occupations that they said that he could do, which were, I mean, very random things. I think one of them was like a can sorter or something like that. Like occupations, I don't even know if they exist, right? So we prepared that, and I think made the common sense argument of why would you reach out to a doctor who just went in for one purpose and hasn't seen him as to, you know, let him go. You didn't reach out to all these other doctors. This is one of the quicker turnarounds on an appeal. I think they made their decision within 21 days of us submitting the appeal. And, you know, there's a lag time before they get it, they process everything. So whoever was in the appeals department basically saw it and very quickly, you know, had that reviewed and overturned.
Because now, do you know who they used on the review, or were you never privy to that information?
The reviewing doctors,
yeah.
I have no idea, because they didn't deny it. They didn't send peer review reports. So whoever those reviewing doctors were sided with us.
And how old was the client? Do you recall?
I believe he's in his mid-50s.
Okay. And the jobs in terms of the vocational analysis, you touched on that, and that's when Hartford presented a variety of different claims that they thought he could do.
Exactly.
And you rebutted in your report in your appeal to basically say these jobs, if they even exist, are ridiculous. There's no way he could do them, and reconciled that with the functional capacity exam. Did you go back to his treating doctors also for additional support?
We did get attending physician statements. His doctors were very supportive. You know, and having that functional capacity evaluation, which really gave us a good roadmap, it also helped with the doctors, because the doctors were then able to not only give their opinions, but also be able to refer back to the report as objective evidence of those restrictions.
Well, it's great that you kicked Hartford's butt once again. Sad that this happened. It gets me so fired up, as I know you does, but this one was really stupid. I would say it's not necessarily the complete norm for Hartford,
yeah.
But this is a shame, and this nurse should really learn from this. I know Hartford watches our videos. I hope they become educated, but we've been doing this for a while. They don't change their ways. They don't care if you're on claim for 2 years, a year, or 15 years. There's still someone that comes along. If they get an in-house medical support that says you don't have a restriction, they don't even try to take the next step to say, well, does anyone else maybe disagree? It's just, we're going to deny, and that's sad. So great job. If you're someone who has a Hartford claim, feel free to reach out to Stephen or myself. No matter where you live in the country, we'd love to provide you with a free initial consultation, and we look forward to the opportunity to help you with your disability claim. Hi, I'm Gregory Dell, the managing attorney of Dell Disability Lawyers, and I hope you find the video you just watched helpful. We put these videos out all of the time, and we'd love if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel. Beyond our videos on our YouTube channel, we also have lots of information available on our website at diattorney.com, and we encourage you to come to our website. The goal is that we want you to be educated about the disability insurance process, and when you get to our website, you'll see that we have information all about your specific disability insurance company, your occupation, and your medical condition. And we've designed our website such that you can easily search our website to find things that you may specifically be looking for. Now at our website, we have thousands and thousands of pages of information, hundreds of videos that you can search, plus we're building a section of reviews of all the disability insurance companies, and we have the Ask Our Lawyer section where you can go ahead and ask us any questions that you may have. Now we realize that you may not need us right now, but you may need us in the future to help you with your disability claim, and we think one of the best ways to keep in touch is by clicking the button below and subscribing to our channel. And most importantly, again, no matter where you live in the country, we're always available. Just go ahead and give us a call. We're happy to discuss your claim and let you know immediately if we can help you.